What is up, you guys? So in today's video, I'm just gonna give you guys a really quick tip. It's not really a big secret or anything. I think everyone knows this, but just in case you didn't, maybe this will kind of refresh it in your mind so that way you start doing this. So basically what I'm gonna do is just add a sub to my kick. I'll just kind of show you how I kind of do it, and I'll just go ahead and play you this part so you can get an idea of what we're gonna be doing. So this is basically just me adding a sub to make my kick feel like it has a lot more weight and like a low gut punch kind of feel in the mix. So I made this part just to really emphasize some of that. So there's a lot of low end stuff going on. It's really busy down there. So let's just go ahead and play this. I'll solo the sub first so that way you can hear it. And now what I'll do is I'll just mute the sub and then I'll add in halfway through the examples. So that way you can really feel that when it comes on, it adds all this power to the kick. So here we go. Let's just go ahead and play this. Alright, so hopefully you could hear that. If you couldn't hear that, you're probably on like laptop speakers or earbuds or a cell phone or tablet. So you really kind of have to be on monitors to deal with any kind of sub anyways. So I guess there's really two pieces of advice when I'm thinking about subs. Is really you got to make room for it in the low frequency. So that means you're gonna have to like high pass everything in your mix and even the other kick a little bit, and you're probably gonna want to maybe get an analyzer and figure out at least what one octave down would be from your top kick. So I like to do that because I like to keep things harmonic. I think it sounds better. It helps the blend better, because if I'm trying to, if I tune my sub to like 50 hertz, which is the G, and I have a top layer kick that's tuned to the key of D, they're not going to blend very well together. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying it's not possible. If you want to get crazy with harmonics, you can definitely do it by ear, but I think it's just easier to blend a kick when they're in the same key. So my top kick is a D2, and that's just one of the kicks from my my kicks pack. So all my kicks are tuned, so I know for sure that that kick is staying at a nice D2. The top peak is right there. I can start to high pass everything around 60 or 50 hertz, so that way by the time it gets to around 35 hertz, which is a direct octave lower than a D2, a D1, then I have room for my sub. So that's kind of the reason why I like to use this analyzer, because you can just zoom in a little bit more, just focus up on the low end if you need to or whatever, and then you have a correlation meter there as well. So let's find around 70 hertz. So right there at the top right, you can see the hertz, and then more towards the middle underneath underlay, you can see it says D2. So for each hertz or frequency, it will show you a note in correlation to that. So let's go one octave lower, so basically half of 75, so around there. So around 35, 36, we're saying at D1. So that we're going to use that piece of information to start making our subs. So now that we know a frequency, a starting frequency that we can use, let's just go there. Actually, before I do that, I just want to show you really quick that it's really important, because I know I'll forget to do this if I bring it up any later, to really high pass the low end on your top kicks. So you can see around 45 hertz, I'm starting to do a big cut right there. So by the time it gets to around 35 hertz, it's mostly all out. So you can kind of start to back this off more if you want. So that way, before it gets, so that way, like if I start cutting around 65, I'm not really cutting the main 70 hertz that this kick will peak at. When we get to around 35, 36, you can see it's mostly cut out. So that leaves a lot of room for the sub, but I like to kind of just blend it in a little bit, so that way there's just a little bit from the top kick and just and then the sub, and then it kind of just helps with the blending. So it's just good to do high passing like this, and of course you're gonna have to do this, but a much higher up on the like at a much higher frequency to like everything else, so that way your mixes won't be too muddy or whatever. So now let's go to the subs. So it's actually pretty easy. This is like the easiest part. So I'm just going to use bassism. You can use any other kick making VST. There's lots of good ones other than bassism. There's a couple free ones I've talked about. or you could just use like any old synth. FM is pretty good for making kicks, FM synthesis. So now that we know our starting hertz, so 35 is a D1 and direct octave lower than my top kick, now we'll just kind of set that starting frequency there. So if you're really having a hard time really getting it to be precise, use the shift. So holding down shift, you can now start to see that it's going really slowly, so it doesn't matter how fast I go with my mouse. It goes really slow because without shift, you're all over the place. So let's set that to 35. Still got to hold down shift. Still pretty hard even holding on shift, but it's a lot easier. So I had it there. Kind of just got to jog it around. So we'll just leave it where it's where I land next to now, because now had it, there we go. So now for T-sweep, I'll set that to around 129 milliseconds. So basically adding a little bit of the T-sweep is just going to make the wave oscillate a little bit more, but still keep it at the same frequency. So like if I have it here, you can see that the oscillation is a little bit longer, and if I start to bring it up, it just kind of compacts it a little bit more. It's the same frequency, just it's kind of interesting. So I like to have it around there. I think it helps it cut through a little bit better when a track is really busy. So no V-sweep, no distortion. We don't need those things. Usually I like to have the ending frequency be the same as the starting frequency, but in this case I like to end it as high as it could go at 90 hertz. So probably like 8 out of 10 times I'll have both of these parameters match the same hertz. So it's kind of up to you. It's up to taste what sounds better at that point. So now let's go to the next thing. So I'm just going to set the overall length to 62 milliseconds. So I'm going to want this to be shorter than my top kick. You don't want your sub to ring out longer than your top kick. So it's a good idea to just have it sit pretty low. So I think 62 milliseconds is a good safe zone. So most of my kicks, I like to keep my kicks pretty short. So 62 or less. But if you're trying to make a really trap, a really hip hop, R&B sort of long sub, this is also a really good way. So you can pretty much use all the exact settings here and just add more milliseconds right here. So I'll just solo this and you can hear that. So that is, basically the only difference between subs in most genres. Some genres will have really short subs because they're not really subbing music. They're just there to help the kick. And some genres are all sub and they're extremely long. But, I actually have a friend who makes just a lot of rap and hip hop sort of things. And I showed him this plugin and it's like changed his life. He doesn't have to sample or spend a lot of time on subs. It's like the quickest thing he does now. So and it's funny because people call him like to like come add subs to their music, and I'm like, god damn it, that could have been my client. But it's okay, it's all fine, we're all sharing the same knowledge anyways. So now let's set the decay to around 35 milliseconds. So really that's just gonna kind of shape out the decay of this overall envelope. So if I have it really long, you can kind of see what it's doing up here. I just like enough of this. I really don't want to put too much decay on this at the end. So if you needed to, you could also just use the envelope right here in the same exact way. So I kind of prefer using the envelope if I really needed to like fade out quickly. But that being said, because I'm using just enough here, and obviously 35 milliseconds out of 65 is a good chunk of it, it's going to sound like a nice natural kind of sub. So everything else doesn't really matter. Not using any noise because it's a sub. So it's really simple. We're already done. The only other thing that you probably noticed is I have a sausage fattener here. That's just for limiting reasons. I'm not using this to, add tone to this thing or anything like that. So it's just there for limiting reasons. And I will say that you should probably mix your sub. You'll know when you have it right, when your top and your sub sound like they're blending, sounding like they're the same kick. So the trick is not to have the sub way too loud or to have it way too low. So one piece of advice, one way I kind of quickly do it is I like to have a master chain just to kind of squash things real quick so I can kind of get an idea of the overall dynamics in a finalized stage or close to that. Really, it's not there to master, it's just there to test the overall dynamics like I just said. So what I'll do is I'll kind of find a nice balance, and if I hear the sub is distorting or the kick in general sounds like it's distorting when I have the two blended, then I know to back off the sub. And when I notice that even with all the crazy compressing and limiting that's going on in the master chain when I turn it on, if the sub and the kick sound really nice and blended and they're not distorting when I have that on, then I know I have it in a good spot. And anyways, before you use a master chain, you should probably be, your overall mix, your tallest peak should be around -6 dB. So just so you know, so that there's headroom for the compression and the limiting to work and have headroom. So that's it, you guys. Thanks, guys, for watching. And of course, lates.